Howdy, peeps. Today we're going to talk about identifying your one and only true love. Join the Journey Radio starts right now.
Welcome to the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps, to the wonderful, splendid, joyous episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. I am Lance, your host for Joy in the Journey Radio. Today, we're gonna go through episode number what is this? 368, I think. Let's take a look. Yes, 368. 3 keys to identify the one. So if you're joining us live here in the program today, go ahead and hit that chat window and share with us where it is you're from. If you're watching this from, you're watching this from one of our social media channels, YouTube or Rumble, and go ahead and leave a comment down below. Tell us where you're from, because that'll certainly help us with the algorithms. All right. So today we're going to talk about a particular topic that will interest many Latter-day Saint singles. How do you know when you have found the one? Also known as your one and only true love. Okay. I thought about the one and only. Maybe it's just the nerd in me, but I couldn't help but thinking about Lord of the Rings instead of the whole one ring to rule them all. Since we're here talking about keys, they're going to help you identify your one and only true love. I thought I would just adjust that little ring inscription a little bit, and so it goes like this: one key to rule them all, one key to find them, one key to bring them all, and in the marriage bind them. I think if you really wanted, I mean, so we are talking about marriage, right? So I really could have kept the ring, right? But okay, time to get serious here. So, first, we're going to start out by busting a myth, okay? And the myth is that, there's this one and only person who you are meant to be with, your one true love. Well, the truth is, there is no one and only true love. Soulmates are fiction. That's a quote from President Spencer W. Kimball. In fact, that the talk he gave where he said that, it's his famous, I think it was 1977, giving a devotional at that Provo school. And he basically, so a lot of people, this is where he said his famous quote about how, if, the right, if the man's righteous and the woman's righteous, they can bear down and make the marriage work. And, a lot of people took that to mean that we're interchangeable parts. But, I actually went back and read the entirety of that address. And it's very clear to me that, President Kimball didn't think we were interchangeable parts. He clearly recognized that, some matches are going to have less work to do than other matches. But, in that context, if you're willing to do the work that's required for, whoever you're with, if you're willing to do whatever work is required to make that marriage work, and both of you have that willingness, you can make it work. And that's all he was saying. He wasn't saying we were interchangeable parts. Um, but this is where he also said that the soulmates are fiction, that there's no such thing as your one and only true love. Now, think for a moment that if that were true, like how ridiculously impossible it would be to find the one and only person that you can be truly happy with out of, millions, let alone billions of people that are on this planet. I mean, the probability is so low. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of math smarts to crunch the numbers on this. But the probability is so low that it's essentially not going to happen. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery. And I personally do not recommend either of those activities. So here's the truth. The truth is there's actually a group of people, any one of whom would make fantastic companions for you. So, we're talking about fantastic in terms of compatibility, connection, emotion, all of it, right? There's not just one person who can fulfill all of that. Um, I know when you're on that hormonal high, it feels like there's only one person, and it's the one person who's feeding you that emotional high that makes you think that that's what reality is. But one thing I've learned in my short little sovereign on this blue planet is that oftentimes the way things are and the way things feel are not the same thing. In fact, the way you feel about reality can be very different than reality itself. So, let's dive into this truth that there's actually just a group of people, right? I'm going to call it your tribe. Um, the question is, how do you know when you've found, a member of this tribe? If any member of this tribe, this group of people, is actually good enough, and that's another thing we get caught up on. We just looking for that one perfect person when really what we need to be looking for is just someone who's good enough, right? So how do you know when you found someone from the tribe, someone who is good enough? Women have a tendency to answer this question with emotion, just like they have a tendency to answer everything with emotion, right? And that's because that's how you know, they have that natural predisposition hardwired into them. So naturally, when they're going to make a decision, it's very normal and natural for them to do so with an emotion-based logic rather than an intellect-based logic, which is what most men use. Feelings do play into this, don't get me wrong, okay? But there is an objective, rational aspect to the approach, right? And that's why I'm introducing three keys, three key questions to consider when evaluating a potential candidate. Now, before we dive into these three questions, I need to issue a word of caution, or actually multiple words of caution, since I can't really sum up the caution in just one word. These questions are not um, they're not ones that you ask outside of the exclusive dating stage. Okay, remember, we've talked before on this program about the different stages of the dating journey, right? There's four stages. First stage is friendship, second is casual dating, the third is exclusive dating, and then the fourth one is engagement. So these four stages, right? Each one of them has an agreement connected with them. So you have to have the agreement connected with that stage in order to progress to that stage. If you don't have the agreement, doesn't matter how much you may want it or how much the other person may want it. It doesn't matter. You have to have both people agree that this is the agreement we're making, and once both people agree to the agreement, then you're in that stage. That's how you progress to any stage of the dating journey. You have to have the agreement. So we're talking here about keys that are appropriate to use in the exclusive dating stage. So this is when you get to the point where you feel comfortable enough with someone that you're contemplating progressing to the next stage of the journey, which is engagement, but you're not quite sure. That's the point we're at. We're not talking about, do I actually ask this person out on a casual date and move from friendship to casual dating? But we're not talking about that transition, right? And in fact, if you try to apply these questions to that transition, you're going to end up bunging up a lot of things. Engaging these three key questions in the friendship or the casual dating stages has the real potential to blind you from considering someone who could be a member of the tribe you're looking for, who could be a potentially great candidate. Okay, and that's going to limit your options and increase the probability that you're going to be single longer than you really need to be. So, just I just have to issue a word of caution here, right? We're talking about a very specific stage of a point in the dating journey. You're in the exclusive dating stage and you're contemplating moving into the engagement stage, and you're not sure if you want to do it or not. These are three keys that you can use to evaluate whether you should go forward or whether you should just, you know, break it off and just, you know, go back to the friendship stage. So that's where we're at. And you need to have a positive, affirmative response to each of these three key questions. If you can get a yes to each one of these three questions, then that's a sign you should go forward. If you answer no to any one of the key questions, that's a sign you really need to think about what you're doing. Okay. So now we've got that all the way. So let's dive into the keys, and we're going to start with key number one. And the first key that we're going to look at is talking about, um, the essentially, um, it's more than just activity in the church, right? I think it to be obvious why this would be the first key that you'd want to ask, right? Clearly, if you want to be making a covenant relationship, you want someone who's going to support that relationship. And the best way to have that support is by being with someone who's also seeking to make a similar covenant relationship in their own life. So you do want a covenant man or a covenant woman, and not a natural man or a natural woman. Um, so it's obvious why you would make this the first key. But in asking this question and looking for an answer to it, my advice is to look for evidence in what the person does consistently over time. Right? Anyone can put on a facade for a short time, but for longer stretches of time, that's where the truth comes out. It's harder for someone to put up an act, for 3 or 4 months. Not that it can't be done; it's just much harder for anyone to do that. So, if you take your time with things and collect evidence as to what they consistently do over time, believe their actions, not their words. Right? That's you believe what they say with their actions, and not what they say with their mouth. And that's look for the key evidence like that. And if you need someone to help you see more objectively, employ the act of a good friend, or hey, go to your bishop. Generally speaking, your bishop has got your best interest at heart. So think about what you're doing, and then talk to your bishop. Okay, your bishop can give you like an outsider's perspective that's probably more objective than you're going to get from um, any one of your personal friends, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is the first key. Does the person demonstrate a desire to make and keep sacred covenants, right? So that's key number one. Now, key number two looks to be the same, but I'm telling you it's not, right? So, and here's the difference, right? The difference is that the first question was all about basic gospel living. This question is about personal integrity and how serious the person considers his or her own word, right? When this person says that she will do something, do they actually follow through and do it? Or are the words just a ploy to get you to feel a certain way, to feel okay with them, to feel okay with mediocrity, really? I mean, when so and so says something will happen, does so and so actually deliver it? That's what we're talking about here with this second question. And it's really important because you can get frustrated, right? I mean, you go forward with someone who answers no to this question, right? And you're going to end up getting frustrated. I'm thinking about my sister with the man that she married, and he made all these promises to her about how he was gonna make his fortune, and she would be in the lap of luxury and she wouldn't have to worry about anything, and you know and and she ended up believing the guy, marrying him, and then come to find out years later, the lazy bum can't keep a job, and he's not able to, they're struggling to make ends meet, and that strain put pressure on the relationship. And at the end of the day, she ended up divorcing the guy, and just being glad to be rid of him, because it was a constant frustration that this guy kept making promises that he wasn't fulfilling. So this second question is very different from the first one, right? The first one's talking about promises that God makes, and promises that we all make in common to have that covenant relationship with God. The second question is talking about promises that the individual makes, out of the individual's own volition. That's what we're talking about here. So again, when so and so says something will happen, does so and so actually deliver? And again, I recommend looking for evidence in what the person consistently does over time. Everyone messes up once in a while, right? So if there's some promise that's made, it's not kept. It's one promise, right? You want to look for what happens over a much larger span of time. So that's the second question. Does this person actually keep promises? The third question is, I think, where the rubber hits the road, and it actually brings out what I consider to be my definition of compatibility. Most people, when they hear compatibility, they're thinking about, do we like the same music? Do we like the same type of food? Do we like to do the same things in our free time? And to me, that's not compatibility. Compatibility is something much different. So let's dive into this third question. And the third question, the actual particular of the third question are going to differ depending upon if you're a man or a woman, right? Now, the basic theme is the same whether you're a man, right? Help me. I'm thinking about someone who helps me meet my potential. That's how I define help meet. Someone who helps me meet my potential. So, um, if I'm going to be looking for someone who's going to help me get where I want to go in life, obviously I have to have a direction already predetermined. So, brethren, you need to have your stuff together, right? Quality women are simply not attracted to men who are aimless and just wandering through life, right? They want a feeling that they're going to go someplace that will help them feel what they want to feel. Okay, things like security, things like being interested, right? I mean, nothing chases away women faster than boredom, right? So if it's a little clue for you. If you want to get rid of a woman who's holding on to you, and you don't return the affection that she's showing you, and you'd rather her go off somewhere else, here's how you get rid of her, right? The first thing you do is you be an adult and you just say, hey, I'm not interested. If she continues persisting, and she's not getting that message through, then all you have to do is just whenever she comes around, be boring. Be as boring as you can possibly be. Nothing chases away women faster than boredom, right? And eventually she'll get so bored that she'll go away on her own. No woman wants to be bored. So, yeah, if you want to get rid of a woman, that's how you do it. Just be boring, right? Of course, to attract the quality woman that you want in your life, you want to be anything but boring. You want to be very interesting. So, part of being interesting is having a direction for your life, knowing what dent you want to put in the universe and chasing after that. Looking at the contribution that will give your life meaning to generations that come after you and working on piecing that together. That attracts quality women. Right? That's not the only thing that attracts quality women, but it's an important piece, right? So you need to have your stuff together, right? So, the woman, you know, um, looking at you and you're asking the questions like, is this woman going to help me get to where I want to go? That's a help me because I guarantee you, right? The fulfillment that you find as a man is going to be in filling that contribution, making that dent in the universe. So you want someone who can help you do that, someone who's going to support you in that. And if someone just doesn't have the predisposition to do that, and again, you're looking at evidence that's accumulated over, a fairly large span of time. If the accumulation of that evidence suggests that this person isn't really going to help you get where you want to go, you need to look elsewhere, right? Because eventually, if you go forward with it, you're likely to get frustrated, right? Because you're gonna have because the woman's gonna end up being more of a hindrance than a help. So, brethren, get your stuff together, right? If you don't have it together, get it together, right? And that's the flip side that the question that the woman asks is basically the flip asking, right? Because it's the flip side of that. The man's looking for a woman who can help him get where he wants to go. The woman is looking at this and saying, is this man going to take me somewhere that I want to go? That's the flip side of it, right? So, now, ladies, lovely ladies, right? I recommend that you resist the natural tendency to answer this question solely with emotion. I know that emotion is a part of your natural decision making process. And I'm not saying that you should exclude emotion completely from, answering this question, this key question. I'm not saying that at all, right? Including emotion is fine. Just don't let it be the dominant influence in answering this question. You want to look for objective actions that show the man has a direction in his life, that he knows what that direction is. He's actively pursuing after it, right? Now, in making this assessment, consider that you may need to consult with someone outside of that relationship. So, again, going to a trusted friend to get the evidence, going to your bishop, reach out to your ward executive secretary and say, hey, I'd like to talk with the bishop, for 15, 20 minutes. You know, can you help me set up an appointment? And then go in and talk to your bishop and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at. And I'm just looking for evidence that, this guy knows where he wants to go with his life. Now, keep in mind that, whether you're a man or a woman, nothing is set in stone, right? I mean, you could look at these three key questions and you could answer, every one of them yes today, but that doesn't mean that the answers will always stay yes. Things will change, even if you intend them not to change. Whatever direction in life you set in your 20s, that's likely going to change as you get older. Okay. Because there's this thing called life that will happen to you. Okay. It's okay to change your direction later. It almost certainly will change. I mean, I look at myself when I was undergraduate in college, in my 20s, I was preparing for a career as an engineer in industry. And I had a career as an engineer in industry, and then along the way, I got laid off. And, long story short, it forced me to make a change in my career. I reconsidered my direction and I made a change in my direction, decided I wanted to go into education. Right. So now I'm going back to school, get my PhD so I can actually teach in a college setting where I'll be actually happiest teaching. So, I didn't foresee that direction, when I was a young 20 something. I didn't know that that's the direction I wanted to go in. Right. So life happens and things change. Right. So just because you can answer these questions yes today doesn't mean it's going to stay yes. Right. Nothing's foolproof. Right. Just because you answer yes to all these three questions does not in any way guarantee that you're going to live happily ever after, right? Very few people actually go to the marriage altar with the intention of getting divorced at some time in the future. That's not the way most people work, right? When they're going to that marriage altar, they're intending things to last forever. And again, life happens, people make choices, and sometimes those choices aren't what we would have them be. And you know, things that we didn't foresee happening end up happening. Um, you know, so answering, these yes to all three of these questions is no guarantee that you're not going to get divorced or encounter some difficulties in your marriage. I mean, challenge is a part of life and everyone's going to confront it, right? The choices we make are simply between sets of problems, right? Which set of challenges do you want to have to deal with? That's essentially what you're doing when you're picking a marriage partner. You're actually saying, what set of problems do I want to have to deal with? No one comes problem free. Everyone comes with a set of, downsides. So it's just a matter of what do I want to deal with? That's really what it comes down to, right? So there's no guarantee. Nothing's foolproof. However, okay, that said, I will say this. Answering yes to all three questions, okay, gives you the greatest probability of successfully overcoming the challenges that will come your way. Doesn't guarantee 100%, right? So the probability of success is not 100%, right? It's going to be a lower number, but the number that you have, the probability is going to be the greatest if you can answer these three questions with a yes. Okay, so just to recap here are three questions. Key question number one: does this person demonstrate a desire to make and keep sacred covenants? Key question number two: does this person keep promises? Key question number three, depends on whether you're a man or a woman. If you're a man, the question is, will this woman help me get where I want to take my life? If you're a woman, the question is, will this man help me get somewhere I want to go in my life? Right? So those are the three key questions. And if you get a yes to all three questions, my recommendation is consider going forward because you very likely found a member of your tribe, someone who, maybe at first glance, this person didn't seem like they would be all that, but oftentimes I've found in life, first impressions can be deceptive, and we need to be open to opportunity. And when we are open to opportunity, sometimes we are greatly surprised to find that the thing we're looking for is in the thing that we initially wanted to turn away from. Well, peeps, that's all I have for you for this episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. Thanks to all of you for joining in. If you have something you'd like to say about what we've discussed today, leave a comment down below. If you have a topic or a question you'd like us to address, we're happy to help. Just leave a comment down below. If there's anything we can do to help you overcome the challenges of LDS singles life, yep, you got it. Leave a comment down below. So the other thing you can do is go to our website, jointhejourneyradio.com, and look at the contact page. You'll find a form that you could submit there through the website to send us a message. So if you prefer that, hey, we can be flexible. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share our content that you find helpful so that the algorithms can get more of our content out to help more Latter-day Saint singles. And until next time, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy, journey on.